Today we are going to make some pretzel burgers with bacon and eggs on them, as well as some truffled fries with a garlic aioli. And with our pretzel burgers, we are also going to make a few dessert pretzels because normally when I make my pretzel burgers, I just one and a half my recipe, but I decided to double it and just to make a couple of dessert pretzels as well. So I've got a double batch of my pretzel dough, and I'm going to kind of break it up into quadrants so that I can kind of work with it for it. But we're going to make this into our buns for our burgers, and then we're going to make it into our pretzels. This is a yeast dough. So I've had it proofing for the last hour or so. It's a really simple dough. So this is a big batch of it. And so I used about, trying to think exactly how much I use in here. 3 cups of warm water, 2 tablespoons of yeast, 6 tablespoons of brown sugar. You let that yeast bloom up until it's nice and foamy. Then I added in a whole stick of melted butter and 4 teaspoons of salt. Mix that all in, and then 8 cups of flour. So this is a big batch because I doubled my normal one. So I've cut it into fourths, and now I'm thinking I need to make 8 out of this. So I need to do 4 out of this one. Actually, I'm trying to do my math correctly, and I'm not doing it correctly. Okay, I want to make 8 burger buns using 2/3 of the dough. And I'm not doing my math here. I'm actually going to make 9 burger buns because it will just be easier for me to divide it that way and then just turn one of those buns into a pretzel. See, this is what happens when I try to do it a little bit different than I normally do it. So I'm just going to make it in here, and then we're going to shape these ones up into a bun. And the way I kind of do that is I'm going to kind of lightly put it into a ball, a circle here, and then so you don't want to pull it too much into a dome, and then you're just going to flatten it out and stretch it out so that when it bakes up, it will rise and like cook up, and then we'll boil it to give it the pretzel thing. Make sure you seal it all together so it doesn't kind of puff apart. But you need to stretch it out so it kind of bakes up evenly. Here we go. I'm give my shake this one up. I'm going to seal these together for this, and then we'll use our last bit to make some big pretzels that we're going to do cinnamon sugar pretzels, and then I'm going to make a little glaze to drizzle over for dessert. Because, we've been doing so good, and, everyone just needs a little break. We've got our next one going out here. This is, again, one of my family's favorites. My homemade pretzels are a favorite in the family, and my husband is like, I've made him eat so much healthy food this week, and he is like, I need something I love, and burgers and homemade fries and homemade pretzel desserts are just everything on his list.
I don't sound like that.
He sounds exactly like that. Here we go. He had to really work to find the meat in his soup today at lunch, to fight around all of those vegetables in there. Here we go. Get that. I know my oldest son, he came home from middle school, and he was like, you've been making a lot of soups recently, because he always likes to come home and have he's like a hobbit, have his second lunch, because I pack him a nice lunch for school, and he was like, I like it when you make some other things like your nice sandwiches and stuff. You don't have to make like a vegetable soup every day. And I was like, we're being healthy and everything like that. He goes, I like things other than soup too. I was like, but he had his Rice Krispies, and we've already gone through almost half the Rice Krispies. Now, I will say my parents came here and they each had a slice. So we've all had a slice of Rice Krispies, and they will make it maybe to tomorrow. But with the dessert pretzels, they should make it through everybody's lunches tomorrow. Okay, we'll get these nice and shaped. And you just want to make sure you do pinch them all the way together. That's just going to keep them sealed up so they look nice, so you don't get a seam. Keeps them in the nice kind of bun form. We're going to make 8 of these, and then the rest I'll turn into pretzels. Here we go. And then we're going to boil these in a baking soda mixture. So I have water here, and we'll sprinkle in about 1/4 cup of baking soda. Traditional, like German pretzels, are boiled in a lye mixture. I don't like to work with lye, it's very caustic. So, baking soda is something that pretty much everybody has on hand. Now, the difference between a baking soda pretzel and a lye pretzel is lye is going to give you that crunchier crust, versus the baking soda is going to give you a slightly chewier crust. I actually prefer the chewier crust because it reminds me of like the American pretzels, like, the Annie Ann's pretzel sign, the things you get at the mall that everyone loves. Um, so that these are what they're like. Very simple, easy, delicious. And it's only a one knead or one rise in there. So you once you mix all your ingredients together, you just let it rise for about an hour in a nice warm spot. And then it's shape up time, and then we'll be ready to boil. I'm going to take my first one and steal a little bit off of it. As you've noticed, my first one is like a Hulk Hogan. It's huge. It's so much bigger than all the other ones. I was going to call it Hulk, and then somehow it turned into Hulk Hogan. Kind of dates me back to the early 90s, 80s, maybe even before then. Here we go. We got our last one right here. And then I'm just going to take a little bit off of this so it can go into a pretzel instead. He had a little nip and tuck here. I am a doctor, guys, so he's going to be okay.
Not that kind of
that was once, my son, he played baseball when he was little, and one of his coaches, they were all like parent volunteers, and I guess they had hurt himself or one of that. And I guess my son had talked about how I was a doctor and whatnot. And he goes up to him, and he was like, "Oh, remind me, I need to talk to your mom when he picked it up because I really hurt my hand." And I go there, and then Torn is all, "Oh no, she's not one of those type of doctors." And I was like, "No, I'm not. But I'm still a doctor, just not one of those." Okay, we've got our water up to, I'm going to turn it up. We're going to add in about 1/4 cup of baking soda, which is really just a good couple shakes over here. You don't have to be precise on it. This is going to, again, we'll boil up. And then when we boil our buns in here, we're going to boil them for about 30 seconds on each side, and then we'll give them kind of a nice little dunk over. They will expand a little bit when we boil them, like they'll poof up, just like we do with our regular pretzels. And then we'll bake them up. We're going to bake these up. These bake a little bit longer than our pretzels do because they're a little bit bigger. Where's my slotted spoon? Right here. Okay, we're going to start dropping these guys down. I always like to drop their top side down first. And I think I can get maybe 3 in here. There we go. We're going to boil these, and then about 30 seconds on each side, and then we'll give them a good dunk. Don't do it in a shallow pan because then you actually have to scoop in and flip over, and that is really difficult. Make sure you have enough water in your pot that you can dunk them. I did it once in a shallow pan, and it was awful. I didn't realize how much I rely on the dunking technique, but I swear it's an actual thing. Okay. So we're going to dunk here, and all you do is you're dunking somebody, just dunk it over. It's a real technical term here, guys. So then we're going to boil them on the other side for about 30 seconds to a minute. The longer you boil them, the kind of the chewier your skin of the pretzel will be. The crust, I should say. On here. And then we'll take them out and we'll get our next set in. And then you just bake it up. It's really, we'll brush with an egg wash too. The egg wash is what's going to give you this nice brown color on your pretzel. So if you don't put it on there, you'll have a very blonde pretzel. Use a slotted spoon so that you can shake off the excess liquid. And then we'll pop these down here. There's a little puddle in my middle of this, and I want to get it off. There we go. And then we'll get our next one in. And these are going to be our pretzel buns for our burgers, which are so delicious. And this is like, so back in the day before youth sports took over all of our free time, we used to go to the farmer's market. And at the farmer's market, they had like these little, food kiosk things. And there was this one that was from, like, it was like a Chicago kind of stand. So they had like hot dogs and burgers. And they had a burger there, which was called the Dennis Rodman, which is what we're kind of mimicking here. And it was on a pretzel burger with bacon, egg, and it was just the most delicious burger ever. And we always call it our Dennis Rodman burger. And then I think my husband would get like the Scottie Pippen one. They were all from like the Chicago Bulls players back in the day. But it was so good. And so we just absolutely love this. And this is my kind of version of it. Nice little shaky shake. You can see just the size difference between the two after you boil them, how much they expand up. And then when you bake them, they're going to get even bigger. We'll get our last. Get those. And then I'm rolling up because we'll do our pretzels. And I'm just going to do 6 big pretzels for our other one. I'm going to actually do like pretzels. I always, a lot of times, do knots, but I'm going to do big pretzels this time. Okay, we're almost ready. Here. On there. Okay, let's dunk these. We're just about pop and pop over. On. We'll get these kind of shaped up for it. Spread them out. I'm going to slide this over here because I want to get this baking up, because I'm only going to bake up one at a time, because I want these to bake up on my top layer of my oven so that they get the best kind of coloring on them. It should be right around closeness. I'm going to turn my water down just a little bit so to keep it nice and hot. And then when we get close to boiling off the next ones, I'll turn it right back up. Give it a little shaky shake. Okay. Now I'm going to crack an egg, add a little bit of water, about a teaspoon or so of water, and then we will kind of whisk it together to make a nice egg wash and brush it over the top of our buns. And then after they come out of the oven is when we'll rub some nice warm butter or some room temperature butter over it, and then sprinkle pretzel salt. There we go. Need a slightly bigger bowl. There we go. And then we're just going to brush. And again, the egg wash is what's going to give your bun its nice kind of shiny brown color to it. It's kind of like what you get with, your challah and brioche. And then our oven is actually set nice and high at 450. And these are going to bake for, because their buns are going to bake a little bit longer. So I'm going to set my timer for 9 minutes, but we'll take a peek at it and see if they need to go any longer than that because I normally bake my pretzels for about 8.5 minutes, but my buns need about a minute or so longer, but you don't want to overcook them either. And then we'll get these again off in the oven. Then we're going to get our fries going, and we can roll up the next bit of our pretzels here and get those boiled off. And we can start working on our bacon and all that jazz. Okay, so pretzel buns going into the oven, and I'm baking the pretzel buns up first because you actually want them to cool off before cutting into them so that they aren't too moist inside. You know, you got to let the steam come out a little bit. So 450, I'm going to set my timer for 9 minutes. And while those are cooking, let's get our bacon going, and then we will get our home fries, our little truffled fries going. We'll roll out the rest of our pretzels and slide this over here because I already got one pretzel rolled out for our dessert pretzels. But I want to get this all started so it can finish up around the same time. So got about a pound of bacon here for our things, but we're not going to use a whole pound of bacon on our burgers. We're just going to use a half a pound to put on as a nice little thing. So I always just, when I do that, I just cut it in half. That way your bacon is in perfect little burger strips. And then you have the other half pound ready to use for another time. We'll get in here. I'm just going to separate it with my hands because it's easier than using tongs, and then we'll give them a good wash. So we'll cook this up, and then I'll cook my eggs. We'll drain a little bit of the bacon grease, and we'll cook our eggs in here as well. And we'll do a fried egg. A lot of times it's also called, when you just do without the pretzel buns, they're called like a one-eyed Jack. For some reason, I was thinking of John, and I'm like, it's not a John. Yes, you're right. Okay, let's get our bacon going. I'll start it off on a higher temperature, and then we'll turn it down to a medium once we get going. So let's get our potatoes going. So I've got 5 here, but I'm not going to necessarily use them all. But I've had a couple of mine freeze outside, which turns them purple inside, and then they're no good. So although we haven't had a couple of really cold days in a while. But we're going to cut the tops and kind of bottoms off. And then I'm just going to do a basic French fry cut on them. Now, if your kids say don't love the skins of the potato, but you don't want to peel it, you can just do a simple kind of quad cut like this, where you take off the majority of the skins, but there leaves a little bit. And that just prevents you from getting too many French fries with skin on them. You'll still have like 1 or 2, but it won't be too bad. Then we're going to cut them kind of in little discs, and then we can cut them into our French fry shapes. We're going to coat these up, and we're going to do kind of a battered fry. So similar to several of my home fries that I make, but today I'm going to do a slightly different coating on them. We'll use a little bit of flour, but we're going to also use some Parmesan cheese, a mixture of olive oil and truffle oil and garlic salt. And so they're going to be like a nice kind of truffled fry that will roast up. And then I'm going to make a garlic aioli by first kind of cooking up fresh garlic and some butter, and then we'll mix it with mayo, some garlic salt, and fresh green onions. And that way you can dip your truffled fries into the garlic aioli, which is so delicious. It's actually like based off of this side dish at this restaurant I love to get. And they always give you just this little teeny tiny cup of garlic aioli. And I'm like, I want more. Give me more. Like, don't give me a little cup like this. I want the big cup. Like, just bring me a bowl. I was like, all I want is the aioli. It's so delicious. Let's see. We got a little spot here. I'm just going to actually toss that whole. See, you always get like a little bruise or something in your potato. Okay, that. cut off that one. Not all of it's bad. And get these. My bacon sounds like it's started, it's rendering down. So I'm going to turn my heat down to a medium, and then we'll give it a nice little toss. But I like to start it high to get the fat to come out faster in the beginning. So I have a little base to fry it on in the beginning. And I'm going to start turning my water up because we'll be over there in just a second. We'll get this, and then the last thing we'll do after we get our fries and our being shaped up is we will get our patties shaped up and ready to cook up. Those will cook up actually quite fast. The burgers we'll do on our skillet, and they'll cook up in no time.
You have a question. Do you think the expensive all-clad and hex-clad pans are worth it?
You know what? I really do. I've gone through a lot of different non-stick pans and always damaged them in the end, and so had to replace them. About a little over 2 years ago, I got the hex-clad, and I have not damaged them yet. They're easy to clean, and I love them. So I don't have anything bad to say about them. My all-clad, I'm going to tell you they're worth it. I've had mine for over 16 years. 16 years of heavy use because I cook pretty all the time, as you guys can tell. And they still going strong. And I am not the gentle person on it. I don't take impeccable care of my stuff. I put them in the dishwasher times. You know what I mean? Like, I do some of those things that you're not supposed to do. And they have held up through all of my misuse on them. So I actually do recommend them because they have withstood the test of time. They conduct heat really well. They're fairly easy to clean up on there. And I've not had any of them fall apart on me. And I think that's people's biggest like fear is you're going to spend money, but are you going to have to go turn around and buy something like this again? If I think I was gifted our all-clad set for our wedding gift, that was 16 years ago. And I would say it's more than paid for itself off in the same time. It's same thing with my knives. I've had my Wusthof knives. They were a wedding present from my siblings, and they're going on over 16 years as well.
Do you have a link for any of these products?
I do. I have them all in my Amazon storefront, so there's a link on our page. So pretty much all the products that I love and I have in my house, I have on there because if I like it, I'll recommend it. And these have all withstood the test of time in our house. And that's for a big family. We've gone through, 5 kids, a lot of things. I don't know why I stopped halfway through my potatoes, but we're turning that up because we'll be on to that next. But let's get our potatoes in our bowl. We'll get our fries up. And now we're going to drizzle them. I needed olive oil. That's why I was coming over here. I always had a plan. We're going to drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil. About, like a tablespoon, maybe a tablespoon and a half. And then we're going to use a little bit of truffle oil. This packs a lot of flavor, so you don't need as much as you think. We're going to use about a teaspoon, but a little goes a long way to give you a good, robust flavor. So even though like a bottle of this is expensive, it's not terribly expensive, but it's expensive for what you get. A little goes a long, long way. And I've had this bottle for a long time. And then we're going to put some garlic salt in here. About a couple good shakes over, so like a teaspoon and a half. And then we're going to add in some Parmesan cheese. And I'm going to try to reach down for the bottom for more of the crumbly bits of my Parmesan cheese. I don't want any really big flakes, but I'm going to bring some up in my hands and then kind of crumble it. But like 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. And I'm going to crumble it so it's really things. You could grate it freshly if you want to. I'm going to just crumble it so it's like little flakes on there. But you want around 1/4 cup to kind of coat our potatoes. And then we're going to add in a little bit of flour. Let me grab my flour. We'll coat these up, and then we'll go check on our pretzels, see how they're looking. About a tablespoon or so of flour. Okay. We're going to coat them up real quick. And you just mix them until you've got them completely coated. And you've got your fries here. Voila. And then we'll pop these in the oven to crisp up under there. But let's go grab our pretzel buns. See how they're cooking. See if they need a little more time or just a rotation and a little more time. Since, you know, typically the back of your oven is a little bit hotter than the front part. Looking good. I think I might want another minute, which is fine because that will give us time to spread the French fries out. Looking good. Look at these beautiful buns here. And I don't know why I'm taking this over here. I need this. There we go. So I'm just going to slide this right here since I've got a little bit more space. And then we're going to take our truffle fries and we're going to spread these out. And just make sure none of them are on top of each other. You know, you just want to make sure they get a little bit on your own. Now, I was debating, most of the time I always like to cook my French fries just on the metal because I feel like it crisps up a little bit nicer. There is cheese in this, so you could put down parchment paper just for the ease of the clean later. But I ultimately opted just to go on the metal again because I think it does give a slightly crisper fry than parchment paper. But I understand the mess that it's going to make. And I apologize to the cameraman now since he does the dishes. And I could have avoided this mess, but I chose the taste of the fry later. So you can thank your belly.
I get half full.
There we go. We've got these all spread out. And give my hands a rinse.
Do you have a question? Could you deep fry these?
You could definitely deep fry them. Now, if you deep fry them, you're going to do a slightly different method. You would not put your cheese on first. You would, after you had fried them, you would sprinkle that cheese on because otherwise that cheese would cause kind of an issue in your deep fryer for it. Perfect. So you see how just a minute to win it right here. We're going to put these down here. Gorgeous. Look how just about a minute longer gives you this beautiful golden brown. Beautiful. I'll slide these over here and we'll let them cool for just a second while we shape up the rest of these. And then we'll rub them with a little bit of butter and sprinkle some salt over them. So these are our pretzel buns, and when we're going to let them cool so they're not piping hot because the butter will run completely off them, but I want them to be a little warm when we brush them with the butter so that when we do, they'll be just delicious. Flip our bacon. Pretty close to getting them all ready there. Beautiful. Those will be ready to take off in just a second. It's funny how I have there's like the way people like bacon, you know, some like it crispy, some like it chewy. And it turns out that my children all like it in various levels of doneness. And I'm just like, can't we all just like it the same? And, you know, Evie's like, I really like it when the bacon is chewy. And my oldest was like, no, it needs to be extra crispy. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, I got to remember to take some out early to make some happy. And And then there's my 14-year-old who goes, I don't like bacon at all. And I'm just like, I think you must have been switched at birth. There we go. Get our dessert pretzels here rolled up. You can see even in the few minutes from making those, this dough has poofed up a little bit more. So they'll be actually a nicer, fluffier pretzel. Get them rolled. So most of the time I do like I do it my special little twist and knot on it. But since I'm trying to make a bougie little dessert pretzel, I'm doing the extra work to have a nice pretzel so that I can drizzle a little glaze over it. And then we'll pop these in to boil off. And then we'll be ready to start making our burgers here because we're getting close to everything being done. It's funny how I think people think it's a daunting task to make like homemade burgers or homemade pretzels, but it's actually like the dough takes 5 minutes to make up and then it just sits there. Just sat in my oven poofing up, doing its proofing time. And then you just roll it out and shape it, and then you can bake it up and you have nice homemade buns in no time. And it's really very little work, but the flavor and the taste and the cost, it saves you a lot of money because to make these pretzel buns probably cost me like $1. So not nearly as much as a pack of buns would cost you, especially in today's grocery prices. Here we go. Let's get this bacon. I flipped one more time, and then we can start. Got one last pretzel to roll, and then to boil, and then we can shape up our season and shape up our burgers. There we go. My kids were all very, very excited for this because I don't often do like a meal like, burger and fries meal. But I was just looking in there as I was getting the stuff out for our vegetable soup, our beef and vegetable soup today. And I was like, I saw the ground beef and I was like, burgers just sound lovely. All right, we're going to pop our pretzels in.
Oh, you have a question. Do you use the same concept to make homemade cinnamon rolls?
It's a very similar for dough base that I use, except so my pretzels use water. My cinnamon roll dough uses milk. And I don't boil like the dough for it, but it is a very similar process. I do a yeast one, so it has a rise in it on there. I do have a video on our thing about my homemade cinnamon rolls and to make them from start to finish. So I have a video on there and just walk you through the steps of it. Because I love my homemade cinnamon rolls. They're a favorite in our house. And the nice thing about them is a lot of times when people, and I think people get disappointed when they make cinnamon rolls, is they'll turn out really dry on there. So the recipe that I have is they turn out just wonderful. They're nice and moist. They're not dry. You don't have to pour a bunch of cream over them or milk over them to keep them moist. They're lovely. So we're doing kind of a chewier fry on them. That's so that when you put them on your burger, they don't just like crack and break apart on there. So one of my kids will be happy. The other one will be like, why isn't my bacon as crispy as I want it? Okay, we've got 30 seconds on the other side. While we're doing that, since our burger buns have cooled off just a smidge, we're gonna rub our room temperature butter over the top. You can also just melt butter if you want to, and you can brush it over. But I always have a stick of butter sitting out, which is funny. So growing up, and I've said this before, I did not grow up in a household that had butter out on the counter or room temperature butter. Our butter was always in the fridge and cold. And we never had like nice spreadable butter to go on bread. And I didn't realize how wonderful spreadable butter was until I met my husband. And he grew up in a family that always had butter on a dish on the counter, or that his family kept it in the cupboard. And I am a convert. I always have butter out on my counters. And I don't know how you could ever go to cold butter. And even then, I'm at my mom's house and I'll leave butter out and I go back and their butter's back in the fridge and cold butter. And I'm like, I make you sourdough bread every single day and you keep putting that butter back in the fridge.
Just gotta watch it with big dogs.
Oh yes, you do have to watch it with big dogs. So before we got our cute little itty bitty, King Charles, our little dogs they make appearance here and there. We had Rollo, the beast among beasts. He was a 150-pound Greater Swiss Mountain Dog, which is a short-haired version of a Bernese Mountain Dog. And apparently, we did not know this, but I just thought my whole family was going through a stick of butter a day. And I was like, why are we eating? And this was just back when we just had 2 kids. And I was like, why are we going through so much butter? And then I was asking my husband, I'm like, how much butter are you putting on the kids' toast? Because I said, I keep replacing this butter every single day. And it was in a glass dish on there, and it was gone every single day. Well, it wasn't until I caught Rollo in the act, but he would jump up onto the counter. He would use his nose to flick off the glass top to the butter jar, and then he would eat the stick of butter. And he gained, his coat was so shiny and he was so fluffy, and he just had this wonderful high-fat diet because he was eating a stick of butter a day. And it took us probably a month to notice. So I'm sure he had, a very high-fat diet until we finally noticed what was going on. But no, we wised up, and we, found a way to secure the butter from him. And all I can think of is how many times had he licked that butter, and then I spread that butter on my bread, and I'm sure it was a lot. I'm sure. Good thing I love that dog. He was the sweetest dog ever. He was a gentle giant, and he was afraid of little dogs. And it was funny. So when we got Loki at the same time, Loki was like this big, and Rollo was so massive. We're gonna go pop these in the oven. And he was so terrified of him and just so scared. And it was hilarious how afraid he was. Look, our fries are doing wonderful. We're gonna pop these on top right here. And set our timer here for 9 minutes for our pretzels. But he was terrified, and so Loki would just run around, and Loki was terrified of him too because he was a massive dog. So they had mutual fear of each other, but they were so cute. So you had like King Rollo and Loki, but big dogs. He was and then our cats would terrorize him too. Loki was afraid of everything, but he was a canine good citizen. I don't know how he passed that class, but he did. Sprinkle a little bit of our salt over our pretzel buns. Now, when you make homemade pretzels or pretzel buns, you cannot use regular salt. You have to use a pretzel salt. Regular salt is very, very salty. It would be way too salty if you sprinkled it on there. Pretzel salt it's different. I can't tell you exactly how different it is, but it's different. It's less salty. So it does make a difference. I feel like it's been, watered down and dehydrated and flaked to be less salty. That's my technical term there. But you can get it like I got mine on Amazon. But you need pretzel salt. 1 jar or bottle will last you forever. All the pretzels you need for ages. Okay, let's get our burger patties going here. And then we can get our garlic aioli going. And then we should be, hopefully, when all those pretzels and everything are done, we should be close to done here. Okay, I've got 2 pounds of ground beef. When you're making a burger, even though you may want to be healthy, if you want a good tasting burger, stay away from the lean beef. The lean beef will give you a tough, not juicy burger. So stick with, like, I'm using 80-20, but stick with the slightly higher fat ones. It will give you a juicier burger on there. Now, the best burgers we had I got some Wagyu beef the other day because it was about the same price at Costco as the ground beef. I was like doing the math and I was like, I can get 3 pounds here for $21, or I can get 4 pounds of ground beef for $28. So I was like, I will get the Wagyu. I never say it right, so I apologize. But I was like, why would I not get the nicer one? And it was so delicious. Wash my hands real quick. They made the most tender burgers. Okay, let's season this up. We'll shape up our patties. When you make your burgers, make them flatter and wider than what you want your burger to be, because meat seizes in. It'll shrink in. And so if you make it the size of the patty you want at the end, you will have a little lump. Sprinkle with a little bit of garlic salt. And then I use a little bit of Worcestershire salt, which keeps them nice and juicy because it kind of cuts through the fat. Nice little drizzle. And then I'm just going to work those seasonings through. I don't put too much because, again, for burgers, you really just want the ground beef to shine. And once it's mixed up, we can shape it. And I want to make 8 patties here. So I'm going to try my best. But like I say, I always somehow manage to have to steal some from another one. I'm going to try a new method. Try to portion them off first. You know, it's like when you try to do something and they just never turn out quite the right size. There's your close. Okay. And the reason, if I was just doing burgers without bacon and eggs, I would probably do 3 pounds for 8 burgers, just to give you a little bit more meat because of how much they season. But with the addition of like 2 slices of, bacon, which is really 1 slice of bacon because they're cut in half, and a fried egg on it, you've got enough protein that you're being added to this meal that you don't need to add in more. Again, so you see how I'm really flattening it out and putting it there? This is going to cause these burgers to go in and shrink in about, I want to say, 40% smaller than this. So they're going to be a lot smaller. I always like to call these smash burgers, but these are going to look like a regular patty when they're done. So they look thin now, but they're not going to be thin. So if you've ever had that problem where you're either grilling or making burgers and you always wonder why your burger looks like this when you're done, that's because in reality, your patty has to be super, super thin and super big because it contracts in on there when it, cooks up. And that's because this is 80% fat, or 80% meat, 20% fat. So 20% of it is going to cook off. And so when that does, it's going to lose 20% of its volume and whatever water weight. Okay. Get these guys out and we can start heating them up. So, see, pretty thin. Don't make them thick because, again, you want them nice and flat so that they'll end up with the right size at the end. And these, trust me, will be smaller. There. I'm running out of space, as usual. Okay. And then we're going to start getting these, cooking them off. Here, I'll actually...
You have a question. Have you ever made stuffed burgers?
This is a long time ago. I have made a couple stuffed burgers. I made one with like cheese, which I feel like is, an easy one. But I made a Scotch egg, which if you don't is a crazy thing, but it has like a hard-boiled egg inside it. And so it was a burger with a Scotch egg, which is really kind of a mound type thing. And it was very interesting. I was not actually a fan of it, but I made it on there. But I will say I am not the biggest fan of stuffed burgers in the sense of I like my burgers typically when I have them. I like them grilled on a grill at a medium rare, which means I like them nice and pink in the inside. And when you do a stuffed burger, you typically have to cook it a lot longer so that you can get the ooey gooey center cooked all the way through. So that's kind of my thing about not really loving a stuffed burger. Now, I do love my burgers adorned with lots of deliciousness. Okay. Look at these guys.
You have a question. What's a Scotch egg?
A Scotch egg is like so you have a hard-boiled egg, and then you have it surrounded by ground beef, and then it's like breaded on top of it for it. So I made a modified version of it, but it is, so it's kind of like this big lump thing, but it has a hard-boiled egg in it. And then you kind of pack your ground beef around it, you bread it, and then you fry it and you cook it. So it's like a stuffed burger almost. Okay. Let's get our burger going. I'm going to cook my burger in butter, not oil, because butter makes better burgers. Now, what was it like? I think Dave Ramsey had a tutorial or something like that where not Dave Ramsey. Funny fact is, I went to high school with Dave Ramsey's daughters. His youngest daughter was in my grade, and his older daughter was in my brother's grade. But small that. But Gordon Ramsay, he did it, and he like used a whole stick of butter for one burger. So I'm not that crazy. We're not using a whole stick of butter. We're just going to use a little bit here. Let's see those first. I get our pretzels, and then we can drop our burgers on there. I'll see if my pretzels, they might need a turn. They might be done. Let's give them a looker. Nice and steamed. Let's give them a rotate. We're going to give them one more minute, and then I'll pop them out, which will be kind of perfect timing I'll pop our burgers on, and then I can come right back over here and grab them off. And then our fries should be done relatively soon. Being on the bottom rack, even though they've been in a while, they're not getting quite as much direct heat, which means they're not going to cook quite as fast, but they're getting tender inside, and then I'll move them up to the top and they'll crisp up pretty quickly. Okay, let's get our first patty on. And I'm going to make sure I get some butter over there. We're going to do it in batches of 3.
You have a question? What did you season the burgers with?
So I kept it simple. Worcestershire sauce and garlic salt. And as you can see, this is the first one in, and it was this size. And look how much it's already contracted in. Okay. I'm going to go grab my pretzels out of the oven, and I'm going to pop our fries up to the top so that they'll be nice and ready. Perfect. Okay. So, steam hits me in the face. Let me grab a trivet. So these are going to be our dessert pretzels, which are going to be delicious. Beautiful. And I'm going to got our pan with our bacon grease in it. I'm going to heat it back up so I can cook my eggs in it. And we'll fry up our eggs for our burgers here in just a second. We'll be about ready to flip these here. which will be lovely. And let me get my cheddar cheese to put on it because it's not just a burger, it's got to be a cheeseburger. And got to use cheddar cheese. So we'll do a couple on here. I've got some sharp ones. When I flip it, we'll pop it on there so it can start melting. Let me grate it up. Looking good. Beautiful. And we'll put our cheese on here so it will have plenty of time to melt while that bottom part is cooking. You don't want to overcook it on the bottom because you want it to be nice. I like ours at a nice medium rare, so I want it to be nice and pink in the middle. There we go. And I'll leave a couple without cheese because, like in a big family, not everybody likes it the same. We all like it a little bit different here. I never quite understood when my mom said, I can't make everybody happy growing up. And then I have a big family and I was like, you're right. You can't please everybody. You can just hope. And then I just say, and that's why I realized you can't be a short order cook because you'll have too many differing opinions. Okay, I'm clearing out just a smidge extra of the bacon grease because I didn't want my eggs too greasy. And then we'll add just a little pat of butter because I like a little bit of butter with my eggs. So kind of trade a little bit of bacon for a little bit of butter. We'll fry these eggs up on there, and then we're going to make our garlic aioli. But let's get our, there we go. We'll get this out. Actually, I'm going to turn this down just a second. I'll start cracking them on here. We're just going to do a simple fried egg. And then we'll take our first round of burgers off and we can get our second round on once I get these eggs on here. Okay.
You have a question? What are the fried eggs for?
They're going to go on our burgers with our bacon and our with the patties. So they're going to be what I call, they're kind of a Dennis Rodman burger, named after this food stand we went to. But they're on a pretzel bun with bacon and a fried egg, and they are delicious. They just add things. They also go by like one-eyed jacks. You can also, I've done a variation of them where you mix the ground beef with breakfast sausage. So it's more of like a breakfast burger too, which is also delicious. Here we go. We'll get our next 3 patties in. Turn those up and let them cook. I'll rotate this. Okay. Let's mince up some garlic to make our aioli real quick because we're about to take our fries out. And I'm going to just slide my burgers over here because we're running out of room. Sometimes I feel like, you wouldn't imagine 2 years ago, my kitchen was a fraction of this size. It was so small. And where there's a beam here and a beam above us, that was my kitchen, just this little room. And it that was still the same. Like we still had our eat-in table over there, but it was just this little square, and it was so hard to cook in there. And it was definitely, I'm so glad we remodeled and did it. I mean, wasn't a choice when we had to, because we woke up one day and all of a sudden there's water coming out from under our cabinets, and we found mold, so everything had to be ripped out. But a blessing in disguise, because it meant this beautiful new kitchen, which is so much bigger than it was before. Okay, let me get our back burner on, melting, and then we're going to get our garlic in there so that it kind of can infuse for this. And we're going to let our butter and our garlic toast up for just a little bit. And we can go grab our fries out of the oven because they should be ready, and we should be just about ready with everything else here in just a second. Beautiful. So here are our crispy truffled fries that we coated in Parmesan cheese and truffle oil. So they have just some great flavor on them. I'm going to have to do some shuffling here. That one's still hot, but not as hot.
What are you frying the eggs in?
They're in a little bit of bacon grease and butter. And so they're just about done here. I'm going to sprinkle them with a little bit of salt. We've got our, grab this right there. Here we go. But we coated our truffle fries with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and we tossed them in both a mixture of olive oil and truffle oil, a little bit of flour and garlic salt. So they'll have just this great flavor here. I'm going to flip our burgers here, and we're going to give this a little toss, a little salt on our eggs. We're almost done. We'll mix up our aioli, and then we'll be just about ready for dinner. Sprinkle this on, and then right before we serve, we'll flip our eggs. So I'm going to bring them down to low.
And did you cut your own fries?
I did cut my own fries. So I cut them, and then we season them up. So those are just made from about 5 small Idaho potatoes. They weren't very big on there. Let's grab this. And while we have this right over here, I'm going to take my little bit of my room temperature butter over our dessert pretzels. I'm going to rub it over, and then we're going to give this a nice coating of cinnamon sugar. So this is the leftover pretzel dough that I had from our pretzel buns, and I just twisted them into pretzel shapes. Instead of putting pretzel salt on them, I'm going to shake them with a little bit of cinnamon sugar. And it's one of our favorite ways. I love to do pretzels both ways because it's just so delicious. Here we go. So you get a nice dessert with it. Okay. Put a little bit of cheese on our burgers here. And let's finish up this aioli, and we are ready to serve up our dinner. So we've got our garlic in here. So the base of an aioli, and this is what we'll dip our fries in, is just really a mixture of mayo and butter. So you need kind of 2 fats here. So we're going to put a nice kind of scoop of mayo in here. I've got probably like a 1/3 cup of mayo. And I've got my garlic and my butter that we've kind of had toasting up. And we're going to mix it right into our mayo. We're going to give this a nice mix. There we go. And we'll add a little bit of garlic salt and green onions. And then this will be delicious for dipping in our fries. And I'll just whisk it until it's smooth. Let me get real quick me grab my burgers off. And round 2 of our burgers are off. So let me put my last round on here. This is the hard thing about being a big family is you only have so much room on your burners. Okay, wash my hands. Let's finish this. A little bit of garlic salt and then some green onions, and then we will be ready to serve up our dinner for it. So I'm going to give a nice mince up on here. We'll mix it all together. Yeah. And we're going to mix it in. And then, you know what? I forgot one ingredient, which is why it's not running smooth. I just need to grab a bit of lemon juice. You need a nice squeeze of like some sort of acidity to it. That will cause it all to kind of come in and be nice and smooth. So about a teaspoon of fresh lemon juice to go with this. There we go. A little more. Beautiful. And we are ready. Okay. Turn my eggs off. Let's get a plate and let's get ready to serve up our dinner here. Taste it. Delicious. So much of that garlic flavor in there from the toasting up the garlic and the butter. Okay. And then I just need to get my burgers over here and a bread knife to cut my things, but let's flip our patties real quick. And okay, let's grab our bun. And spatula for our egg. Let's assemble our burger. Okay, so we've got our homemade pretzel bun that we're gonna cut through. See, it's nice and soft and pillowy in the middle. We're going to place our patty on there with a fried egg on top, 2 slices of bacon on top of there, and this makes our Dennis Rodman burger. And then we're going to serve it with our truffled fries that are coated with truffle oil, garlic salt, Parmesan cheese, and baked in the oven with a nice serving of our garlic aioli, which we made from toasting up garlic and butter together, mixing with mayo and whipping it together. And it's perfect for dipping our fries in for just the most delicious dinner. And then for dessert, with our leftover pretzel dough from our pretzel buns, we whipped up some homemade cinnamon sugar pretzels for dessert. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos into the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you just have to go to our page and search for what we made. So our pretzel burgers with our truffled fries and our cinnamon sugar pretzels, so lots of delicious stuff. And you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my hex clad pans in there, my all clad pans, all of my bakeware, knives, everything I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.